Well, as the internet's favourite Rudiger Aidan Ross would say, big W! Huge W! You want to know what that W is? Stick around until after this. Alright, this has got to be one of the biggest environmental victories in Australian history. It has to be right up there with the Great Barrier Reef National Park and, of course, the other things. This is, of course, the Great Koala National Park being passed. That is 180,000 hectares of prime koala habitat being set off until the sun turns into a red dwarf or Donald Trump has a bad day. One of those two things, it's all gravy for koalas from now on. This is a massive environmental accomplishment. In terms of New South Wales environmental victories, this would have to be up there with Bob Carr signing off on 100 national parks in a single day. So we are talking about easily the biggest environmental win since the 90s, possibly even the 1970s under Neville Wran. Just to give you an idea of how massive this is not just the 180,000 hectares that has been locked off for it. And again, this is prime real estate, yeah? This is their version of Vaucluse. That's all for them. Forever now. But it's not just Vaucluse. It's also the other less prime habitats that are still pretty damn prime. So not Vaucluse, Dover Heights. Yeah? We are talking about hundreds of thousands of other hectares of land that are being linked up to the Great Koala National Park. It's very complicated. This is all bioscience crap. Well, if that is even the right discipline, I think that's got something to do with muscles or something. Look, the muscles of trees. That's what's happening there. The entire circulatory system of trees, it actually is sort of like that because it is linking up all of these vital ecosystems so that they all lapse into one another. That's what's really crucial about this. It's not just this park, although it is massive. It's all the other parks that it ensures the healthy transition of animals and pollination all linking up together in an environmental ecosystem that locks up to make sure that New South Wales maintains its environmental health for generations to come. This is a huge win for the climate as well, obviously, because you are keeping in all of this pristine land that is now just going to act as a permanent carbon sink. And the other one that nobody ever really mentions when it comes to this is massive win for water protections as well. We are talking about pristine streams going all through this. We are talking about an area of land that acts sort of as this sponge. This is huge. And also, I'll add this as well, not just for koalas. Of the 1,000 species that are on the endangered list, a huge chunk of those are now protected because of this. Massive win. Hats off to Penny Sharp, Environmental Labour Minister of New South Wales, for not only negotiating this, but pushing for it for the last 10 years. And might I say, hats off to us for being one of the only media outlets in the country pushing for it, drawing people's attention to it. Now, you will notice that there was a big lapse in coverage of this ever since the Labor Party got in, which has acted as a massive conspiracy theory this whole time of like, friendly Tories only like logging when the Liberals do it, but when Labor do it, it's not good logging anymore. You know, that usual thing. No, I'll tell you what's happened, right? I'm actually very interested in this subject. Very, very interested. God, I wish that I could monetize my autistic obsession in this to you. Not only because it would have been really good cash the whole time, but also because, God, like, there is nothing in Australian political, anything across the planet that I am more interested in seeing enacted than this. This is about as a patriotic act as you could possibly take for Australia, right here. Really wanted to talk about it. Did talk about it behind the scenes on Patreon. Oopsie daisy. But the reason that I didn't talk about it publicly, and you could go watch that because there is a lot of inside baseball in that we were discussing about a year ago. Sign up to our Patreon for it. But the reason that we aren't allowed to talk about this is because once the Labor Party got in, you had a government that was serious about enacting this, and as such, you got to give them breathing space. Why do you have to give them breathing space? Because now there is very intricate negotiations that are taking place. This is not just, okay, I decree this park, open, and then you cut the ribbon. You do realize even when you get the ribbon cutting to say Wet and Wild or something like that, someone still has to build the park in the background. And not just build it, they have to come up with all the blueprints as well. This is the last 2 years of this happening. It is honestly phenomenal to me that there were so many people that it was like, hey, they're elected and it's not open. What the hell? I am rescinding my vote. What do you think happens when you're setting up a national park, especially one that is as complicated as this one, because it is a network of ecosystems that you have to negotiate that have been on private land as well as public land, and you have to consult a bunch of industries that are going to be affected by this. In fact, not only do you have to consult a bunch of industries that are going to be affected by this, you have to invent a bunch of industries to replace them. Not just replace them, make the economy of the area better. You have to tell the people that are losing their jobs there, your life is going to get better as a result of this. And you have to prove it with hard facts and figures. And that is a lot of consultation. Yeah? That was the last 2 years. As opposed to the Nationals for the last 10 years that were ripping the guts out of it. Instead, what you had was a bunch of conspiracy theories peddled by these quote-unquote so-called activists. And I do make a very clear distinction between the two, because the reason that I wasn't talking about this whole time is because I was talking about the activists that were actually doing the activism. There were the ones that were sitting there saying, okay, we've got a sympathetic government in place now. How do we move this along further? That is the serious activists, right? But then you have all of these other opportunistic grifters from either side. I mean, let's just go through exactly what you would expect the headlines to be today. Guardian announces that New South Wales locks in Great Koala National Park and brings in immediate ban on logging. Great. And then, to balance it out, because again, this is an outlet that needs Greens Whingers money to continue on, and so they cannot ever let anyone ever have a win. They always have to whinge about everything. On the same day, at the exact same time, can't even give it a nanosecond of oxygen. Loss of koala habitat shows total failure of nature laws, conservationists say. I mean, fuck you. Honestly. Why are you guys such c***s? Like, is money really that important to you? Why can't you just take the W just once? This is a massive victory. Huge victory. You can try and dampen it, but if you are trying to dampen this victory, there is no other way to describe you. You are just an opportunistic c***. That's it. What you notice with both The Guardian and the Sydney Morning Herald as well, and this is the truly deplorable part. I was talking about the Great Koala National Park when it wasn't beneficial to talk about it. There is no monetary incentive for me to talk about it. There was no clout incentive. No one knew what the hell it was. I was the one raising awareness for it. We were the ones risking our lives for that. You want to know a big reason why we went through all John Barilaro thing was pretty much to get this going. That was the main drive that was at the center of all of that, was that this is going to be really important for the future ecological sustainability of Australia. All of it, right? Like, this is a big, big win. We were willing to go through all of that. In the meantime, you had the Sydney Morning Herald and the Guardian not talking about it, you know, just some shirky little idea. As soon as the Labor Party gets in, then they start talking about it. Why? Because it turns into something that they can use very cynically as ammunition against the Labor Party to continue on with their subscriber base of, oh yes, I'm so above the two majors. They're both terrible, aren't they? So they look for any ammunition that they can get. What you will see is the complete opposite here. We were talking about it when it was important to talk about it, when it was important to raise awareness for it. These cowards, just so they had access to the Liberal Party, nothing. Absolutely nothing. As soon as the Labor Party's in, then they start talking about it. Right when it is really bad to talk about it. Because this is when you actually have adults in the room trying to hammer out very delicate, finicky negotiations, and they're trying to find any little scoop that they can to just throw a spanner in the works where they can. That was The Guardian and the Sydney Morning Herald in comparison to us. You see why whinge merchants just anger me to no end. To no end. They actively get in way of progress for their own financial gain. They are truly terrible people. Really, really fucking bad. I mean, look, in comparison to the Telegraph, which I think we could all say, that's just hilarious. Look at their response. Giant Koala National Park. I don't even think they know it's called Great. I think they think it's called Giant. Giant Koala National Park could cost hundreds of timber jobs. I mean, technically that's true. But the other reason that we were taking 2 years for this is you're sitting there and we grew up with the propaganda of Fern Gully, greatest movie ever made, and we're sitting there thinking, why doesn't the spirit animal come in and stop the bulldozers? When in reality, what you have to do to stop the bulldozers is get the union rep to come in. That should have been Fern Gully 2. Fern Gully 2, union rep negotiations commence. That's the other big factor in this. You are removing an industry that, yes, we can sit there and say, oh, it's only 1,000 loggers. But there's knock-on effects to that industry. And it's a place where employment is a lot less available than it is in the cities, i.e. the regions. And so you have to come up with an industry to replace that. That was another sector of this. Another sector that the Greens in Parliament, because they are just the parliamentary whinge merchant faction that just profit off of endlessly complaining. They're sitting there saying, oh, it's an ecocide, everything's getting logged. That was a complete lie. The Labor Party locked off immediately when they got in all the koala hotspots in the Great Koala National Park. I think they were talking about, look, don't quote me on these numbers because this is all in like budgetary figures, but it's around somewhere around 3,000 hectares that were logged in the last year. And in return, you get 180,000 hectares permanently logged off. Permanently not logged. Anyway, so they're sitting there in the upper house, constantly going on about, oh, ecocide, Labor's doing nothing, just as bad as the Liberals, just for cheap gain. All of them, cheap gain. Not helping at all. Everybody that always says, oh, Friendly Geordies, all he cares about is Labor and he just trashes everybody else. No, I trash people that deserve to be trashed. The Cannabis Party, they were there at all of these consultations. There was meetings that were getting set up behind the scenes, like every few weeks. Every few weeks there would have been an update. We're talking either about the industry aspect of it or the ecological aspect of it, about how we're going to build this park, how it's going to work. Legalized cannabis was there. Greens were fucking seldom. They did all work. They just had their little talking points because they know that they can just win off the vibe of sitting there and saying, this is a good start, but it's not enough. Anyway, this is all to say, big win for the environment. I would have loved to have put up all the stats and do all the behind-the-scenesy stuff, but that was told to me in confidentiality. I am just here now because we can point to the real-world, concrete result of all of that hard work over the last 2 years, and I've got to say, well done to everybody that was involved in this. This is something that will outlive your legacy. I think Bob Carr said it best when he said that when it comes to government, education and the environment, they are the two things that can outlive something for generations to come. This is one of those moments. You should revel in it. You should celebrate it. Everybody that voted for the Labor Party so that they could do this, you have my sincere gratitude for that. This is part of your victory as well. Well done. Thank you very much. If you would like a more in-depth explainer for it, it is available at our Patreon behind the paywall. And I've got shows in Cairns, Brisbane, and of course Townsville. So make sure that you get your tickets to that. We'll see you next time.